we're standing here with Janine. Yes? So can you tell us where you're from?
So my name is Janine Jakob and I'm originally from good old Germany.
Alright, so what brings you here?
Oh, that's a long story, to be honest. Basically, it was just a complete rational decision to come to China. Because at that time, I started my master's degree at Munich Business School. But at the time, I was already working a couple of years for, the Fortune 500 IT company HP. So for my second master's degree, I had the chance to go to any out of 60 countries in the world. And to be honest, it just made sense to go to China, or at least to go to Asia and explore it. But I gotta tell you, I was a little bit afraid of it. Because, let's be honest, German versus Chinese culture is just so different. And unfortunately, I also gotta tell, you don't have the right picture of what China actually is about in German media. So after seeing all of these German companies being bought by more and more Chinese investors, I thought, if I want to or not, maybe in the future I will have a Chinese manager, although I work for an American company. So I guess I just have to go to China. And more or less, I just threw myself out of the comfort zone. I thought I have to jump into the cold water, even if I'm afraid. Come on, it's just 8 months that I go to China. If I don't like it, well, it's just 8 months, right? But to be honest, so I came through my studies to Suzhou, although I had the chance to also go to Shanghai and study at the best universities there. But I ended up in Suzhou. I don't regret it, and I would have never thought that I'm actually gonna fall in love with China.
So you didn't know anything about China before you came here?
Of course, I studied 2 semesters also about business in China. This is one of my majors in the international business master's degrees. But I still felt, okay, the more I actually learn about China, the more I get interested. However, now that I compare of what I experience here in Shanghai and different parts of China, like how it is to interact with Chinese people. I actually lived, and it was my decision, my effort, to live with a Chinese family for 10 months. So after seeing and really experiencing this, my picture of China is different than what you just see on the media. And on top to this, I gotta tell you, so at that time I was already studying in my master's degree. And then I had some Chinese classmates. And they come from the top 3 universities in Shanghai. But working with them was so challenging. And I think I'm good at intercultural communication. I have patience. I'm happy to bridge gaps that we can learn from each other to get the best outcome. However, it was so challenging. And after that, I thought, Janine, why did you just choose China? Are you crazy? Because I want to have good grades in my studies. I still had my job, so I was safe there. But I thought I'm crazy. But then actually when I came to China, the Chinese people I worked with, they had a very good work attitude. The way how we worked together was really great. So coming back to stereotypes, you cannot say that every Chinese person, because you had a bad experience, is like this or works like this. So yeah, now I'm happy. I don't regret the decision. And yeah, China is definitely different now that I've experienced it. And to be honest, I just wish more and more Germans and other foreigners could just experience it themselves.
And you are originally from Munich?
Not originally, but I lived in Munich before coming to China. So I love Munich, I love Shanghai, but I was born in Eastern Germany, close to Dresden. But at the age of 9, my mom and we moved to Western Germany. You may know Stuttgart, where Mercedes-Benz and Porsche is produced, in this kind of area.
And what is it? Rittersport.
Rittersport, exactly. Good German chocolate.
Right.
Who can say no to Rittersport chocolate?
Right, very famous. A lot of variety. And what did you study in your master's?
Yeah, so my bachelor's was a mixture out of IT and business, international management for business and information technology. And that at that time I was already working with HP. So in Germany you can study and work at the same time. It's very unique. And for my master's degree, after a few years of more work experience, I decided I'm going to study international business, but really with a focus on entrepreneurship, marketing. And as I said, as it just like makes sense rationally seen to learn about China, I choose China as a major as well.
Did everybody in your university work at the same time while they were studying, or was there just a few people or only you? What made you do that?
To be honest, I normally wanted to do a full-time master's degree, what I decided to do, but without working. However, if you don't have enough savings, and I also consciously decided to attend a private business school, which I do not regret, I had to take a very high bank loan. So at the same time, you still have your fees. You have to pay your apartment, you have to pay your food and all these things. So this is why it was kind of like obvious I have to continue working. So then you have the choice. Number one, I was already with HP for 5 years at that time. I have a safe contract. I have a lot of work experience, very good standing. Still, like everything's kind of safe. And at the same time, my managers didn't want to let me go and supported me. So that was really good. And then at the second time, there's like, what do most students do? They work in a restaurant in the service area. So, but there you don't get that much money. I didn't like it as much anymore. And yeah, so it was still a good decision to stay with HP. But let's be honest, like doing a full-time master's degree, still working 15 hours per week, and during your semester break, 40 hours and more. I think not everyone's able to handle this. You really need to have a good time management. And to be honest, sometimes I just wish I could have afforded to just study and focus completely on my master's degrees.
And what did initially get you into HP? Because you said that many people were working at bars and restaurants, but you did get a good job at that. How did that happen?
That's a good question, and this is something I'm really proud of. So in Germany, it gets more and more common that we have this, we call it like duale Hochschule, like dual system. So what does it mean? You apply with a company of your choice if they offer that system, and once they accept you, you automatically also get accepted with the university, which for me was in Stuttgart. So every 3 months you actually change between like studying at university for 1 semester, and after 3 months you do an internship within your employer for 3 months. So within 3 years this changes. So I actually got a salary from day one of starting this bachelor's degree because I was an employee with HP. And at the same time, I was a student. And more people study this way in Germany because your chances are so good, not by only getting a regular monthly salary that you can like afford your own life at an early age, but also you have very good opportunities to get a full-time contract right after your studies. And let's be honest, like security matters, and we all want to be on the safe side and have a safe contract. And of course, that's also what our parents want for us.
Okay, so what drove you into being an entrepreneur in business?
So at that time, before I started my master's degree, I had 2 manufacturing clients. And I was an account manager, and not only responsible for a full IT service portfolio, but mainly trying to drive and develop new business models with our manufacturing clients. That was super interesting. So I learned about design thinking, about the business model canvas, how to apply it, how to really define a target group, and how we, from the IT perspective, then our customer from the manufacturing perspective, and eventually on demand, maybe even a third party, how we can all like find synergies, create one business model in order to fulfill the needs or solve the problem of my manufacturing clients. And this is how I started to learn in my full-time job, and also to apply these kind of like new methodologies that entrepreneurs would use. And actually at that time I could never imagine that I myself want to become an entrepreneur. But it was fun, it was exciting. So this is why I thought, yeah, maybe I can also study about it and take a few courses about it. And I got more and more interested. And then just for fun, like with some friends, you suddenly came up with some random ideas. You just tried it out. At one point you said, okay, it's not your main passion, or there are some obstacles, or maybe that's not the right partner to collaborate with. And after having had a few of these trials, well, this is what happened where I am today. So I literally founded my own company in Shanghai. I mean, before that, I finished my studies, I quit my job at the same time, but it was never the goal. It just like happened by trying it out, by developing yourself, by becoming a different person, because I really found my purpose in life here in China. And yeah, it just like kind of like the funnel. And you got closer and closer and closer to your right path. But before that, you just didn't know about it.
And how many years have you been now in China?
Actually, it's just a bit more than 2 years that I'm in China. But it feels like I've been here for years. It's crazy. Because China, and especially Shanghai, is so fast moving. And yeah, everything feels like such a long time. I just came back from Germany. I visited my family, did some business there. And before I came to Germany, I was here for 6 months, which is not a long time. So, but when I actually arrived in Germany, I realized how much time has passed, how much I have achieved, how much has happened within only 6 months. It's crazy, and it's kind of like your inner clock was different. It felt like you have been here for a year. And why is that? Because China is fast moving and there's so much that is happening. If I talk to my mom or to my dad on the phone, there's just so much I can tell them of like what happens in my normal 24-hour day life. To be honest, I love it. It's exciting. If you would ask me about, hey Janine, how does a regular day in your life as an entrepreneur look like? I would tell you, I have no idea. And also in China, you learn how to become more flexible. Very difficult for Germans, I gotta say. I guess I've improved on that part. Yeah, of course you need your priorities, you have your goals, but business in China means, and dealing with Chinese people means, you gotta be more flexible. And even within your day, you just have to adjust your priorities sometimes and your appointments. But that's what you learn in China, and it's just so exciting because so many interesting things happen that even in the morning when you get up, you meditate, you get ready for work, you cannot foresee it yet.
You said that you found your goal in China, your purpose. So can you share what your purpose is?
Mm-hmm. Actually, I thought I'm the perfect person to work in a corporate. Like, don't get me wrong, I love working for HP. I got a senior position right after my bachelor's degree as 1 out of 3 chosen ones in whole Germany at the age of 23, right? Which is crazy that a corporate company, gives you a lot of responsibility for budget, for like C-level on your client side. But when I came to China, something changed. I think it was probably already when I did my master's degree in Germany, because I learned more. I kind of like opened myself up. I actually moved from more or less Stuttgart area to Munich. I broke up after a 6-year relationship. So at that time, it was a lot about like personal development. So yes, I was working still for HP. I started my master's degree. I had to find my place in Munich. And I just also developed as a person. I had to find the new Janine again. And there was this one course called Success Factor Happiness at Munich Business School. This one definitely changed my life, where I kind of like had these aha moments and I thought, wow, business people actually should know about happiness. And this is something you can learn, and it can bring you so many advantages in not only your private life, but in your work life. And I, as a person, had changed within these 3 months. Like, for example, I put less pressure on my shoulders. Yeah, so that course changed me, and I guess probably the other opportunities that I had throughout the master's degree. But then when I moved to China, the first night, actually, no, I was the only person from my business school who went to Suzhou, to that French business school schema. So I was alone. Secondly, I mean, I lived in the US, I worked in Finland, I lived a bit in France before, but China is different. So the first night when I actually arrived here, my beloved grandma died. Secondly, when I then finally arrived in Suzhou, the first few days before going to business school, the first day in general, I felt like I have not only a Chinese culture shock, but at the same time also a little bit French, because I mean, I lived in France before, but I had so many like French-speaking people surrounding me. I lived with them together, I studied with them together, so it was kind of like, well, a culture shock is normal, but it was like a double culture shock, plus like I literally found out via text message that my grandma died while I was just moving in with 15 other students in our shared apartments. But I gotta say, I believe that things have to happen. You also meet the right people at the right place at the right moment. That's what I believe in. However, getting out of my comfort zone and going through these tough times of culture shock, of getting to know your new you, building up a completely new life again, it challenges you. And I love to be thrown out like in the cold water, because this is how I feel like I can advance even faster. And then it just like kind of like everything just happened. So how did I find my purpose in life? I think it was really like step by step, but a lot is related to self-development and knowing who you are. So I was studying at the time, still working virtually for HP Germany. In the first week, after having these culture shocks and just starting at Schema, I actually went to Schema's Chinese director and I said, Mr. Lin, I cannot understand how is it possible that one of the best French business schools do not even offer a happiness or positive psychology course. It's hilarious if I think back about that, but that's somehow like how it actually started. Because if you look at Yale, at the University of Berkeley, Harvard, and so on, they all have these positive psychology happiness courses for business students. But they didn't have it. So then the Chinese director said, hey, why don't you open your own student association? And for us in Germany at a business school, like we do not really have that big concept of student associations compared to French business schools. And that's really a thing in France. And of course also in the US. So, all right, I guess I'm just gonna found the Happiness Association. On top to this, I really tried to learn about the Chinese culture more. And it was so challenging to make Chinese friends, because most people at my international business school were French speaking or came from some other European countries. And there were just a few, like in the master's degrees, there were no Chinese, only in the bachelor. So it was challenging to also like make Chinese friends outside of university. What did I do? Well, I was like looking on Baidu about networking events. Like I have to go somewhere to meet those local people, right? And yeah, so it also I ended up going to Shanghai during weekends. Like my last money literally went on the train, on a cheap hostel, on going to Shanghai to meet people and to go to these like expensive networking events. Because yeah, there was already purpose behind it. I'm in China, so I want to get to know about the local culture and language. So this is how I started going to Shanghai. I met more and more expats, and with every person, and also for Chinese, you develop, you learn something from them. If they're more successful or smarter than you are, they already have their own business, they work for a big company here, whatever it is. You always learn something from the people, or you just get inspired. So after this, I ended up through different kind of like connections attending Startup Grind in Suzhou. And this was 2.5 months after having arrived in Suzhou. Imagine this, Everyone who knows me knows that I'm a very proactive person. But it took me 2.5 months, and most students, they're just there for one semester, for what, a bit more than 3 months, no, not even 4, to study. And it took me 2.5 months to finally get my first real Chinese friends. I mean, they were also older than me, they had been working. That weekend, I got my first Chinese friends. The same time, I founded a startup with them. Of course, not legally on the paper yet, because we all know that's a bit more challenging as a foreigner in China. But that weekend changed my life. And now guess what? One weekend before that, I thought, how can I learn about Chinese culture even more if your Chinese is also not that good yet? And I said, I should do what I did before. What's that? Living with a local family. So I did this in France a couple of times, I did this in the US, and suddenly that weekend it just happened, because this is what our startup was about as well. I met right afterwards my Chinese host family, with who I later lived for 10 months, even after my studies. So to sum it up, all of these kind of like events, again, it's the funnel. Like it started with your work, with your master's degrees, the happiness association, being out of your comfort zone, back home, like in a new country with a completely different culture, and all these things, these networking events, meeting other people. It all ended up that I got more and more interested in entrepreneurship, and at the same time, I realized in April 2018, okay, I have to make a decision. Do I go back to Germany, go back to my account executive job, or because I really wanted to stay in China, do I stay in China, maybe work for a corporate there, or take a local contract for my HP here in China? Or do I continue with the startup that I founded with my Chinese friends? Oh, I forgot, I founded a lot of networking events as well. So at the end, I actually just realized when it was time and you had the time pressure, you have to make a decision. I realized, okay, the startup that I founded with my Chinese friends, that is not my main passion. I love everything, the conferences and the events that I organize, and the vision and mission that I defined for the Happiness Association. I was so passionate about it. It wasn't really obvious yet how to really make a lot of money out of that, although I saw the need for this, that companies have a need of getting happy and engaged employees at workplace. So yeah, it was just obvious. I had to make a decision. So I quit my job, stayed in China without savings. I kind of opened my own company, traveled between Suzhou, Shanghai, went to more networking events, tried to build up my guanxi because the network is important, and worked for a wellness startup in part-time while working on my own startup. And yeah, I just found my purpose in life because I realized I can have such a big impact in this wonderful country. China has already achieved so much, but I know that I can help the local companies, the local people, I mean, even experts who are here to make a change in their life. Because the science of happiness found out when you are happy right here, right now, your chances of becoming successful is even higher. So it's not like the other way around, how people sometimes tell you, of course, my child or grandchild, I want you to be happy in life. But if you want to become happy, first of all, you have to be successful. Meaning, for example, you have to work for big IT or finance company, get a senior management position, and then in the future, in I don't know, 10, 20 years, then you will be happy. I don't know if any one of you has heard this before, but the science found out it's the difference. And yeah, so I found myself, my purpose, and now this is what I'm striving for.
So you lived with a family for 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
How is your Chinese now?
So we had an agreement. As you know, most Chinese, they want their kids to become fluent in English. So the agreement was I can live with them, but I need to speak in English with the child. They actually gave me the opportunity to speak in Chinese with like the parents. However, I have to admit, and that's something I learned from, even if I sometimes tell other people, I was not very confident about my Chinese. I didn't have a lot of time. I was like working 15 hours for HP, studying in full time, had the Happiness Association, started networking events, and Bible Borders, my startup. And in between, I had to sleep as well. So I did not put the priority on Chinese studies. If I can give you advice for everyone who wants to do business with China or you live in China, do it differently. Focus like really on Chinese studies from day one, because this is what will make the difference. And right now that my company is settled, this is what I'm changing. I'm changing my priorities to go back to Chinese studies and really focus more on the language. Because a language, no matter whether it's in China, in Germany, or wherever, a language opens the door that you understand the culture even more. And also for your business to get into the local companies. And you all know that not everyone in China speaks English yet.
You said in the beginning that as a German being in China, you became more flexible, such a big difference. You made a very clear statement about that. So what is the biggest difference between Germany and China for a person who's coming here, or European for that matter, to close in a couple minutes?
Okay, well, there's so many differences that we have, and we cannot speak about Europeans. There's too many different cultures. However, as a German, I never saw myself as a typical German. Sorry guys, I don't drink beer. Oktoberfest may eventually be an exception. Just kidding. But because I lived in the US, Finland, France a little bit before, I also adapted to these cultures. But a typical German, like, let's speak about some stereotypes. We love to plan in every single detail, right? We're very structured and organized. So that's something that is important. It gives us security. We like to plan in long term because it also gives us security. So these are like the contrary of a China that is very flexible and you're suddenly changing appointments, or where you have to kind of like adapt, and there's so much like insecurity, you don't know what to expect, as I said earlier. So this is a little bit like the contrary of how Germans are, how Germans behave. Also the communication style is different. Everyone knows Germans, we're super direct. We say no, and we're just very direct also with feedback. However, Chinese, and we cannot say that everyone is like this, right? But like the Chinese communication style is a bit more like in a circle. And if we look at the Hofstede, different culture differences, there's a lot of differences. However, I always think there's not one culture that is superior. For sure not. But why don't we take and adapt and also take the best out of their culture and out of your own culture and just in general from other people. And you can kind of come up with your own mix. So this is something I try to do. This is why I call myself a global citizen, because I took the best for me personally out of what I learned and saw and experienced in the US or in France or even in Finland when I lived there. So I kind of formed my own global culture, I would say.
You mentioned that you wouldn't be able to tell your mom what your day ahead would look like. But what is your routine? You also mentioned about jumping into cold waters. Does it involve taking cold showers or something like that?
Okay, I gotta admit, even if my dad wants me to shower every morning cold, it's a bit too cold for me. I can't handle that every morning. Just kidding. So actually my routine is definitely, I have a morning routine. So yes, I'm a morning person. Everyone knows Janine gets up very early, something between 5 and 6:30. Although I would suggest you guys to wake up at the same time every day, how a lot of successful people do it. Yeah, so my routine is I definitely meditate in the morning. And my phone is not the first thing. No, let's say social media and text messages are not the first thing that I look at when I grab my phone. Because there's so much negativity that kind of like, it can ruin your whole day. So first of all, you really have to take care of yourself. Make you, like, strengthen yourself. And only if you're strong enough, you're balanced, you're less stressed, you're a strong you, then you can also help other people. And especially in my business, being a happiness career coach and also an intercultural trainer, it's really important that if you want to help people, you have to be in a good state first.
Okay.
So yeah, I do have routines in the morning, and because I'm German, I love that. It gives me this, like, as I said, like a sense of security. But at the same time, of course, I schedule my plans. Also, my lunchtime is different every day, but that's just my personal choice. Yeah, and then I stay flexible or just work on my priorities and on my to-do list step by step.
And how long are you planning to stay here in China?
That's a very good question. How long will I stay in China? Let's see. In the beginning, like when I founded my company, I said, okay, in 5 years, that's the exit strategy, I want to sell my company. It's changing. Maybe 3 more years, and then I would like to move on and live in a different country in Asia. But I definitely want to stay connected with China, with my friends, with my Guanxi here. So the ideal would be, yes, I live in a different Asian country, but I still want to do business in China, maybe even have my office here. But I just come to Shanghai maybe, let's say, every 2 months. And then the rest I can work virtually. And I also have my team, my local team here. It's the same even for Germany. Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's very interesting, very inspiring, and I thank you for letting us into your life.
My pleasure. All the best, guys.